So I'm Dennis Beatty. I'm here from Podium out in Utah. They are one of the premier sponsors here, and yeah, they paid for my whole trip, and so obligatory slide for them. So I've been trying to make a lot of YouTube videos about Elixir, trying to help pull in more of the crowd from JavaScript and stuff who are usually looking for kind of more flashier demos, I think. And so one that I made a while back was talking about IOANSI for making CLIs. And so what that allows you to do is use ANSI escape codes really easily to change kind of the colors of your output, to move the cursor around and things like that. And one of the things that I didn't know about very well when I created that video was a thing called IOLists. And so when I did that, I started out by just kind of replicating a Docker Compose output. And so outputting kind of 3 different fake little apps within Docker, and then creating this green text. So the io.ANSI library uses ANSI escape codes to actually change the colors. And so by outputting that io.ANSI.green before your done text, it makes the done text green. And then putting the reset afterwards says go back to your default. And so by concatenating those 3 and then outputting it, you're basically outputting green text that says done. And many of you have probably seen that within Elixir when your errors pop up as red, or if you're running your tests and all the little dots show up as green. That's all using ANSI escape codes to do that. And so then you can do even more advanced stuff. So you'll see here where we're actually putting the done at the end of the lines. You'll see within that pipeline at the bottom, we're moving the cursor up by the line number that it needs to get to. And then we're using the special kernel string append syntax to append the code to move the cursor to the right to get to the end of the line. And then we're using the kernel append again to append that done text that we had just created. And then we're appending a carriage return. And then we're appending the cursor down to get it back to the original place. And then we're writing that all out to the terminal so that it will show up. And so one thing that this does, oh yeah, and then in our original function, what I did is I just created a range from 1 to 3 and then shuffle it up and call that line done function for each of those so that it'll just randomly order when they display. And so this kind of creates this longer bit of code, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of demo that for you. So if we go into our terminal, and I'll just paste that into an Elixir file, then we see that it creates the text, and then it appends done to those in random order. However, let's go a little bit into the way that this is done. So right now, when we create the done text, we're starting out by allocating a string for io.ANSI.green. Then we allocate another string for done, and then we're allocating another string for io.ANSI.reset. Then our concat operator is concatenating the first 2 together and allocating another string for that, and then we're allocating a final string. Oh, am I at the end? Oh, okay. So what we can do to make this even better is to use IOLists. And so what these do is they stream the bytes. So instead of concatenating your string together, you just stream all the bytes into IO. So working with our line done, we can basically just convert it so that instead of allocating all these different strings, all we do is we create a list of all the strings together and then write that out. And we can do the same thing with our done text. Just putting those pieces into a string instead of concatenating them. And so then we don't have to allocate the concatenated versions. And you'll notice that this will make it so that our final IO list is actually a list nested within another list, but that's totally fine because we just output to IO from the beginning to the end. And so we can have the same code that is simpler to read because our strings are just in a list rather than having to concatenate over and over. And it's a little bit more performant as well. So that's kind of all I had. I'd love to have you reach out to me on Twitter if you have any questions. Otherwise, there's this great article by Big Nerd Ranch where they talk about these and explain them really well. Thanks.